Wrestling Underground podcast for the week of August 4th. Let's say August 8th. That ain't how we say things, Chad. It's the 8th month. This is the Wrestling Underground, the only podcast that brings you the unfiltered, the clear cuts, and the most honest of opinions possible without being diluted through the realm of, well, nonsense. I'm your host, as always, Chad Bordo. Joining me is the glorious one himself, Marcus Green. Marcus, we're talking Raw Underground to start off this week, so, you know, stealing our shit.
We are the true underground, not to be overshadowed or to take away from Subterra Lucha. We are the true underground.
We are born in the flames of the Lucha. To be clear, I want to be very, very honest about that. Lucha Underground was part of the reason why I went with the name for the podcast, because I liked the idea of us being the counterculture. We are the counterculture of pro wrestling. We don't cover the WWE like most people do. We've never glad-handed them. We often criticize them. I don't want to say more than most. I want to say we fairly criticize them when criticisms due, which is often. This isn't the first time, though, that we've created an entity that somehow came back and, you know, decided that it was going to be more than what, you know, we expected it to be way back before you even joined us. We were, we had a decent following on Blog Talk Radio, and it was significant. You know, we're doing all right these days, but back then we were doing gangbusters. We were top 15 listened to podcasts in the wrestling genre, not overall. Even 6 years ago, that would have been ridiculous to think. But we were known as Lords of Evolution. I was going through a corny name phase. It hasn't ended, clearly. And we would go by LOE quite often. And it was for, like, a May pay-per-view in 2011 or so, maybe 2012. And WWE started running this fucking advert saying, you know, are you suffering from LOE, lack of entertainment? I'm just sitting there going, motherfuckers!
Oh, man.
Yeah, it was a kick at the dick, not gonna lie. I was like, ha! And like, I know people who are, you know, have worked in there and work now, and I'm not saying they're stealing ideas. I'm just saying I wouldn't be surprised if they're poaching.
It's funny. Like, as soon as you said it, I was just like, oh, I want to get Kevin Kelly super kick, like, because that reminds me of the whole TNA thing. You know, of course, Hogan, who was heavily criticized by one AJ Styles for not going around and doing his damn job, which was promoting the company, and he's like, well, I'm going into these meetings, dude. I'm mentioning TNA. They're thinking I'm talking about tits and ass. I'm like, well, did you tell them ahead of time what you were trying to talk about?
Well, the answer is no, obviously. So, real quickly on Kevin Kelly. I like Kevin Kelly. He's a great play-by-play guy. But for whatever reason, whenever he called an Eddie Edwards match, I hated it. Because he would always do the soaring and scoring. And you're just sitting there going, this is definitely try-hard Eddie Edwards, not die-hard Eddie Edwards. Because that's some try-hard nonsense right there, folks. So, when I saw Raw Underground, I saw that it had the same kind of font style that we use. I'm just sitting there going, ha!
Speaking of trying hard.
Right? Like, I'm sitting going, now people are going to assume, oh, you named yourself after Raw Underground. Bitch, you think?
Yeah, same guy that says Michelle McCool stole the Styles Clash. And
oh, God.
No, AJ Styles stole the Styles Clash from her.
Right. I knew exactly what you meant. And she even said something to the effect of, like, I don't even know who that is. Bitch, yes, you do. That's like being in the rap game and going, yeah, no, I don't know who Tupac is. I didn't steal his look. What? So I'm sitting here watching this, and I'm just like, I'm not even watching it. I saw it because I was doing, I had a lot of work done yesterday, so like I got it all done in like the span of 4 hours, but I had like 12 fucking articles written and shit, so I'm just like, I'm doing nothing from like 7 till not, whenever. So I'm just like, I'm playing video games for the first time, like in depth in quite some time.
Nice.
All right, you know, I'm playing the umpteenth playthrough of Resident Evil 2 remake, and you know, I'm jumping back and forth between that and NBA 2K, and you know, I'm just watching some Archer on the interwebs, and I decided to check in because I was somewhat interested to see what this new stable idea that I've been hearing about all day was going to be, and I see this Raw Underground debuting at 10 p.m. I'm like, the fuck. First and foremost, I was pissed. I was so irked. I'm just going, someone that talks as much as me to as many people as I do, I gotta think someone thought the Underground idea was a good idea, right? Like, I don't know. Maybe I'm giving us too much credit. It's very possible. It's not exactly the most obscure of ideas that we tapped into on that one. Not like the LOE. That one was a shot. I will die believing that one's a shot.
Even worse than that, not only did they like bring up the name, they tainted it.
Oh yeah, they ruined it. They like 6 months later, we had changed it to NOE, to Nerds of Entertainment, because I'm just like, it's done. They killed us.
Oh, you know what's funny? I came in on the tail end of that.
Yes, you did. Yes, you did.
Yeah.
So maybe I'm being a bit big in the britches thinking that they're ripping us off, but the font's the same. It's like, you know, the concept is exactly what we're going for, that raw, unedited kind of, you know, we're not worried about who we, you know, offend or upset. Not that we're trying to offend anyone, but if we say, hey, Eddie, stop eating the carbs and start hitting the gym, I don't feel like that's an unfair criticism considering that these are athletes and we treat them as such. We don't go in on their looks. We're not sitting there going, Eddie, you're not very handsome. No, like, you know, there's a clear line. We're not Meltzer. You know, we're not taking shots at who is it? Which Australian chick was it? Peyton Royce.
Yeah, Peyton Royce. You don't turn me on. Get off my screen. That's basically what that was.
Yeah, he basically said she was more attractive before and or after. I forget which one it was. I forgot which one she had. But he's like, you know, before she had augmentation surgery on her breasts, I found her more attractive. Like, you can just say, like, I don't find her that attractive. That's not my cup of tea. That's fine. You know, but, like, when you start criticizing someone for the decisions they make that affect their beauty, it's like, dude. Like, if it's Mickey Rourke, fair play, right? Like, if you've gotten on a knife so many times, you look like the living rendition of a catcher's mitt, I feel like that's fair criticism because we want to try to prevent people from looking like Mickey.
Yeah, and I know you've seen that cat lady.
No, but I have like 1,000 different other examples that probably go in line as like. Have you seen the Japanese Barbie girl, or like she's Swedish? I think I forget which one she is, because there's a Japanese one and there's a Swedish one. But they both. The Swedish chick is the Barbie girl. The Japanese girl is an anime girl, and they basically like had like augmentation done on their face to make their eyes a bit wider, so they looked more like an anime character. And then the Barbie chick had her ribs removed, like the lower end of it, so like her body would narrow like a Barbie, and she's like wearing like a corset all the time.
About that, Jesus. There's also those dudes, and it's normally consistently white dudes that want to have this kin look to them. So they get their like cheekbone raised, or they get that ass chin implant.
Yeah.
Man, and they get ass implants too. I'm like, what are you doing?
The worst are the calf implant guys. Like, what are you doing? Who's that for? I brag about my calves because who cares?
Yeah, but you know, another thing that's going on is it was like at this point, what can't you do medically? People are getting ab implants.
That might be the only way I ever have them.
and it's funny because you brought up, and we won't spend too long on female aesthetics here because we know that's a thing. But I think Ford has them.
Ford. F-150?
Katie.
Oh, I wouldn't be surprised. Yeah. She's just all plastic. And like, here's the thing. I don't mind that necessarily. But when you sound like Fran Drescher stuck in a vacuum cleaner, I'm good. Every time she comes in, goes, I'm like, oh God, no.
Freaking making Chad do the Rollins. That's hilarious.
John.
I thought I must admit it was hilarious. That was one of the I popped for that segment because of what they did with Callahan.
Yeah.
And it only worked with her this week because normally she's always get off my TV type of deal. But her doing her thing, mocking Callahan for that debacle last week. Hilarious.
So let's get back to the other underground. Because in this underground, we are perpetually just fuck it. We're perpetually fuck it. We'll do it live. That's all we're about. We are not the kind of guys who obsess over the minutiae. Like if it's something's good, we'll enjoy it. If something's bad, we'll stop watching it. So very different from a lot of other channels. And one of the things that I like Brian Zane when he's not so much on his high horse. When he's just talking wrestling and wrestling history, I think he's really fun. He had a girl doing his SmackDown reviews, and one day she stopped doing them, and I didn't know why. I don't watch the Raw or SmackDown reviews on his channel. I don't watch any of the reviews on his channel in terms of the TV shows. He does pay-per-view reviews, which I tune into regularly, which is what I watch him for. But so I went and looked, and turned out like 3 months ago, 2 months ago, the girl that was doing the SmackDown reviews told him, "I hate this. I'm not going to cover it anymore." And he's like, "I can't blame her. It's bad." But yet he's still covering it because he found himself, stuck in that niche. We didn't do well ever with the Raw, and WWE coverage, in our podcast numbers or our reviews or anything. So even though we try to break into it, it's our Impact stuff and our non-mainstream stuff that gets the most, attention. So for us, it makes sense to just drop Raw because it's not something we enjoy and we don't have a base for it. Yep. But yes, go on.
No, and I love that name, like the whole brand. I almost wish we could have saved that brand banner for covering like 2 other things, like Lucha Underground or maybe something else.
We can, we can resurrect brand banter. Like that was a great fucking idea I had, but we would just need to find 2 different brands to banter about. Maybe do it more like a PTI, like you rep NWA and I'll rep MLW, and we give like, oh shit, I just gave us a brand new idea. And we give like the 5 things we liked about our corresponding shows, and pick the 5 things we didn't like about each other's shows. So like I'll give you 5 great MLW things, and then I'll give you 5 things I didn't like from the NWA, and you do the same. Holy shit, we just came up with a new idea. Brand banter coming back 2020, guaranteed. Just gotta figure out who to do it with. Because Ring of Honor's not shooting new content, MLW's not shooting new content, New Japan shooting new content, but we don't have a secondary outlet to do New Japan. And frankly, we both quite like New Japan, so.
It's brand banner 2021 return tentative.
Tentative. It already went from returning 2020 to now 2021 tentative. Up, guys, just got word. Brand banter's canceled. Sorry, guys, just got word. The life and death of a new show.
It's the New Mutants of podcast.
Oh, God. So let's talk about Raw Underground because conceptually, the name really pisses me off for obvious reasons. But the idea, I'm in on. Granted, Josh Barnett's Bloodsport, well, I should just say GCW's Bloodsport because they did a Matt Riddle's Bloodsport. That was like the peak of this idea. Josh Barnett versus Minoru Suzuki was, I think it was last year, was my match of the year. It was a 25-minute or 35-minute draw, and it's the same idea. It's a ring with no ropes that you treat basically as a, what was that Bloodsport idea? Kamate? Where you're basically just fighting until someone dies. Kumite, that's it. There it is. Kamate sounded like some dumb thing Krillin would say. Kamate! So the idea is that you don't really need to show up in gear so much as you just show up in clothes. And the idea is that you beat on each other until someone doesn't get up. Kind of like MMA, or at least, what MMA used to look like, with UFC 1, where guys would just show up in jeans and actually fight, and that wouldn't go well. But I think the thing with this is, like, there's real legs here if they can figure out, a better way to execute the matches and to not just have, I don't know who these dudes are. Like, the one that I saw on Twitter, which was the only reason I even knew about this, was some big dude with like his jacked up haircut taking on some little dude who looked like Mike Bennett in Austin Theory's, illegitimate love child. And it went about as well as you would expect it to. It was sloppy, it was ugly, and it wasn't anywhere close to the level of production that you would see on Josh Barnett's stuff, because Josh Barnett brings in routinely people who have amateur wrestling experience, jiu-jitsu experience, actual MMA experience, and so the chain wrestling and the techniques are a lot better. Case in point, I think Killer Cross, Carrion, that name's terrible. Karrion Kross took on Davey Boy Smith Jr. On the same show that Barnett and Minoru fought on. And I think Timothy Thatcher was also on that show. And those guys all have legitimate grappling experience, and it looked really great. But they didn't just rely on that. I think like they put John Grisham in a match with some Japanese deathmatch dude. And like the deathmatch dude like caught, I think, Grisham with like a knee to the head or something like that, and won via TKO. So like it was still cool, even if you didn't have guys that specified in that kind of grappling genre. This was obviously something that was thrown together last minute, but it's not a bad conceptual idea as long as they're able to get the right guys in there. Like your Bobby Lashley's, your Tim Thatcher's, guys who can bring a certain element to the product that makes it a little bit more legitimate. And take away the jeans and shirts and shit and just kind of go in like, fight shorts or like your gis, just something that can really showcase your legitimacy in this environment. Did you see this?
Yeah, I saw it. It was, it came off like a vanity project a little bit, because didn't Shane try to buy like a fighting company years ago?
Shane tried to buy the UFC, and Vince is like, no. So, what are you gonna do?
Yeah, it's weird. And I saw somebody else talk about this. It was like it's very weird, and all it strips. By the way, like the whole, of course, something on Raw, even something that was supposed to be separate from the show itself, still some kind of way the damn show ended up having. By the time the show ended, it had already had 2 authority figures.
I saw that.
God damn, like it. But yeah, it was just weird because Dolph Ziggler popped up on there. I think one of the Viking Raiders popped up on there, and it's difficult because it's like it'll be different if this was something that, like you said, they thought of long term, and it was something where like guys who clearly wasn't getting any momentum on the main roster would just be like, okay, screw this, I'm gonna just come over here and do my thing. But if you're gonna have them going back and forth, it kills believability when they're supposed to be real, quote unquote, shooting here, and it's scripted over here.
Was that how it was presented? That it was supposed to be some type of like shoot fight?
Yeah, because it really wasn't. I mean, it really kind of was like it kind of felt like a really like some low budget Jean-Claude Van Damme lion
Bloodsport.
type of deal. Yeah, Bloodsport type of deal. Because Dolph came in there and did some amateur wrestling, I think, and then that's probably the best he's looked in years. Because he actually won. But yeah, I think that could work for guys like him, like you said, Shelton. This might have been something that Kurt should have did to probably prolong any type of deal he had. Because going out on Baron, I don't call anybody say going out against Baron Corbin is a end of your career on the absolute dud. But,
even Angle agrees with that too. By the way, Angle's like, I wanted John Cena.
Yeah, he went along with the narrative for a while. He just like, okay, I can't sell this anymore. But yeah, I mean, it kind of supposed to be, like I said, presented like that. But it's like if you're gonna have it go back and forth to where one week when this guy's like legit beating another grown ass man up, and then coming over here and jumping into another man's arms and getting caught in the match, it's instantly killing.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah,
it needs to be formulated in a way that legitimizes these guys, so you can bring them back to the other side of the fence, so to speak, and they bring that credibility with them. So, like, let's just say they use Chad Gable in something like this. and he starts beating on people, using amateur wrestling techniques and wins in 2 minutes or 90 seconds. Then after 2 or 3 months there, you bring him back to the quote unquote mainstream side of things, and you have him do the same stuff to guys on Raw proper. I think that's the way to go if you're using this to develop new talent. Point of emphasis, though, that I think this should be a large kind of idea to run with. The idea of doing variety shows in wrestling needs to die. I don't think people realize that was a WWE gimmick, the put everything on every show kind of idea. I've long been a proponent of going with a more abstract sport presentation of wrestling. New Japan does it. They incorporate stats into their shit. They have match times, average length of matches. Moves that win you matches. Wins and losses matter for them. AEW's trying to do it, but to get through an AEW show, I find to be tedious. Mostly because you have 20-minute segments with Cody Rhodes glad-handing himself. I don't need to see the Cody and Brandy Rhodes sex tape. Like, I'm good. Like, Brandy's, she's as the kids say, a dime piece, but I don't need to watch Cody glad-hand himself for 25 minutes. I'm good on that sex tape. Like, you can put that back in the closet, Cody. But when it comes to pro wrestling as a whole, I think presenting it as a real sport is the way to go. Because when you think about, like, New Japan and the criticism that their matches get, it's usually because they're quote-unquote too long. And I think there's some fairness in that critique, but it's not coming from people who understand the critique. Wrestling is not a basketball game. In the NBA, you know that you're going to get, I hope I got this right, 4 quarters of 15 minutes, I think, or 4 quarters of 12 minutes. I forget. I think it's 12 minutes. You know that the game's going to have all 4 quarters. You know that there's not going to be any early stoppage. You know that it's going to be something that at a certain point you might be out of. But pro wrestling should always be presented as a combat sport, which means there should always be a time limit, even in main event pay-per-view matches. And you should always be willing to give less than you thought possible. Not in terms of performance or effort, but in terms of quantity. One of the best matches that a lot of people talk about from New Japan over the last decade was Tomohiro Ishii versus, what was his name? Shibata. It was like 6 minutes. And it was just them beating the shit out of each other. But no one's going to watch that match and say, that sucked. Goldberg-Lesnar at Survivor Series was awesome. Goldberg-Lesnar at WrestleMania, less awesome, still pretty awesome. Went like 5 minutes. You can have 5-minute matches as long as there's stuff in it. And I feel like an idea like Raw Underground can give you that kind of a lot in a little type of presentation, which will then in terms help affect pay-per-view matches where you aren't expecting the match to go 30 minutes just to get it, to be a good match. And I think that's part of the issue. It's like watching someone, critique music off of what was successful in 2002. Things change, and you need to change with the concept. And and criticizing a match for not going long enough to tell a story means you don't, one, understand what the story is, and two, you don't understand that wrestling is a combat sports simulation, and it works best when presented as a real sport.
Yeah, and the thing about it with New Japan, that's one of the only few critiques you can throw New Japan because, and they can afford to go in that loud because their characters, whether they're doing short or these long matches, their characters are never compromised because the story is always consistent and brought back and forth in logical ways. But with WWE, it's like guys like Brock, McIntyre, Randy, somebody like Lashley, guys with those instant impact finishes, they shouldn't have long matches.
Mm-hmm.
Call the RKO out of nowhere if it takes you 20 minutes to hit.
It's ridiculous. It's so dumb that when we talk about realism in wrestling, that's part of the thing we talk about. The idea that you can actually, jump into something and watch it knowing that if you have someone who has a big kick like McIntyre, or you watch someone who like Big Show when he was doing that knockout finish, you should not be having 25 minutes. You know, in fact, you could have matches where you go for those types of finishes, and like Orton like let's say Orton face off with Gable, and Orton comes at him, hits him with a barrage of forearms because you're not allowed to punch in wrestling, and that's again, like wrestling needs to be consistently booked, and that includes like actually admonishing wrestlers when they use punches, which you don't often see, at least anymore. You need to get in someone's face and be like, Randy, you can't punch him, so he goes to start hitting forearms, and he forearms him to the ground. He starts forearming, and then maybe he gets up and goes for a punt. Maybe Gable misses. Orton goes for an RKO. Gable does a backslide 1, 2, 3. Those types of matches not just improve the standing of like a Gable type, but also maintains an Orton's type standard, mostly because when you have a Randy Orton who eats a fast loss, it doesn't necessarily make him look bad. Too many people use inside terms not knowing what it means. You can't have a 20-minute match and get jobbed out, unless in that match you do zero offense. Case in point, John Cena and Brock Lesnar, what was that, 2013, 2014 at SummerSlam, where Cena literally got his ass beat for 20 minutes and did not respond at all. Those are the types of moments that would be considered a jobbing. But also the commentary needs to be better because a lot of people don't know what to think. And that's the one thing I find a lot when it comes to wrestling fans. Unless it's literally spelled out for you, a lot of wrestling fans won't understand what's happening. But they'll pretend.
Yeah, and it also doesn't help that those guys, contrive. Because I was thinking about when I was watching Impact, when that great segment with Anderson when I think he threw the phone to the camera guy and just went after Austin. That was a great. You can only imagine the euphoria they're experiencing with just logical, creative freedom. But for some reason, when I saw Anderson on the floor, I kept thinking back to that Batista, that stupid ass Booker T moment when he said Batista is down like 15 times back to back. And I'm like, how are you supposed to get anything over that's worth a damn logically if you got somebody in your ear probably telling you to say that 15 times in the same octave? It just makes you come off stupid. It makes you come off stupid as a announcer. It makes the fans tune out, and then it inevitably hurts the match. So, you're three-way screwed on that. But if you got somebody like Samoa Joe or Jim Ross logically breaking down, even Taz telling somebody like they got like a camel clutch on, why it's better to grip your hands a certain way instead of another way, because it's like one's a bush league grip and one actually gives you a better lock on. It means something.
Mm-hmm.
So it's stuff like that. And like I said, with guys like Brock, it makes all the sense in the world because he's supposed to be this thing you're not supposed to be able to conquer. Like even John Cena, that made all the sense. And when I think, was it that match or another match where Cena basically got whooped for like 15, 20 odd minutes, and then he had to hit him with a chain wrapped around his hand?
Yeah, that was Backlash 2012.
Yeah.
Or Extreme Rules, whatever it was. I'm dating myself with that one.
Because logistically, it only takes 3 seconds, and the kind of daze a monster like that and get in and get out, it makes sense. But like you said, and Chad Gable could really use something like Wrestling Underground.
Yeah, he could.
Yeah, he could use us more than he could use Raw Underground. Because make no mistake, like if he goes through that and dominates, like you say, and still come back as Shorty freaking G, what? Come on, man. Like, stop.
I think it's interesting that we spent the last 15, 20 years trying to be like, oh, there shouldn't be weight classes in wrestling. And then New Japan's like, yeah, there should. And now people are like, no, boo weight classes. I'm sitting here going, how about more weight classes? I think the idea behind the secondary and subsidiary titles, these tertiary belts, Marcus, I think that's an outdated mode of making stars. Like, I think we're all stuck in that 1998 headspace. And I was thinking about this the other day, where, Goldberg won the U.S. title and Sting was the world heavyweight champion and Booker was the TV champion. And, like, that's kind of where these guys were popularity-wise. Like, Goldberg was still up and coming and Sting was, someone who you could put the belt on, and then Book was just getting his legs fresh in a new, very first time ever singles run. But I think that idea has been destroyed because that was at a time when boxing only really had one belt that people cared about, which was that whoever was the heavyweight champion, thanks to, in part, the Evander Holyfield and Mike Tysons. But because of the rise of mixed martial arts and the popularity of the UFC, Bellator, Rizin, One Championship, and others, the idea of having one guy is very much a Vince McMahon 1981 idea. Every company should have at least 3 or 4 or 5 world champions these days, at least in my opinion, because that way you're not stuck in a situation where if Roman Reigns can't wrestle because he's got a newborn and he doesn't want, risk the newborn baby. I think he had twins. He doesn't want to risk the babies getting sick, or Becky Lynch gets pregnant. You're not stuck going, well, our 2 top guys are gone. What do we do? Because you have a middleweight heavyweight champion, you have a world middleweight champion, a world cruiserweight champion, a world heavyweight champion. You have you could do a women's flyweight championship and a women's atomweight championship, and then that way you have 5 world champions you can put the belts on and parade them around to various outlets at different times. And what you also do with that is you allow the ability to have multiple quote unquote top guys that rotate every week, so that way you're not stuck watching one world champion every week defend the same belt against the same crop of talent. Now, the downside is you do have to then sign more guys to bolster the weight divisions, but still, that seems like a good problem to have, because that way more people have a job. And that also means that you're sending them out less times on television, which makes their appearances more valuable. Because that's another thing WWE and WCW really killed, was the idea of, the rarity. There's a reason why Brock Lesnar pops a rating. It's because Brock Lesnar's around every 9 to 12 weeks. Now, you don't want to go that long, but once a taping cycle, that's how it should be. Even on a 2-hour broadcast. You have too much talent to just keep throwing out the same 6 guys every week. And that's part of the reason wrestling has suffered in the eyes of the mainstream is, why would I tune in to Raw to see Drew McIntyre? He's on social media. He's got 60,000 YouTube videos. He's going to be on next week. He was on last week. There's no importance. There's no rush to watch. You have actual appointment viewing television that's live. It's a live sporting event for the sake of argument. And you can't get people to tune in? That's because people don't need to tune in. You're on 52 fucking weeks a year, and the same talent is on every fucking week. And if Vince is super fucking desperate, they're on 2 different shows a week. There's a reason why people in the TV business have an off-season of sorts. That's why even though the Kardashians are on season 30 or 48, whatever they're on, they're still able to draw a number because they're only on for 10 weeks in a row, and then they're off for 10 weeks. That's what wrestling needs to realize. They need to regiment how often these guys are on television, especially the WWE. They have no excuse. They have like 300 wrestlers, 260. Sorry.
Yeah, and like I said, this more than anything, I know people like to give a lot of credence to those diehard WWE fans that find no fault in what they do. I like all this was gonna do. You can put it on the fans being absent all they wanted to, but that's a very integral but small piece. Ultimately, when you look at the level of resources and the talent that they have, this is absolutely stripped away anything they could have used as an excuse for their shitty creative. Because to me, somebody like McIntyre, while I might be more high on than you, I think he's a good champion at a really bad time. Couldn't have calculated for COVID. He's having to go against guys like Ziggler because there's really nobody to contend with. Brock's you could barely get Brock to show up when there wasn't a pandemic. You think he's gonna pop up now? And Paul Heyman is basically on the outs, but he's basically an accessory when Brock comes back, a necessary accessory when Brock comes back. And it's like you've not built anybody else up but somebody like Orton, who you kind of had to drag out a little bit, which is why guys like Ziggler and I think they brought Heath back in as a buffer because they didn't want to rush that. But yeah, I do wonder though how pissed off Vince is, because I know at this point he's like, if I had the option to not give them the option to stay home, then my Roman would be here.
My Roman.
Like Roman would be here because it's like I know that's pissing him off because I really do think they threw that out there thinking guys would put their heads down and just come to work. And then somebody like Roman, like, no, I'm good. Somebody like Kevin Owens kind of just comes and goes as he pleases. It feels like Zayn is completely checked out, and other people clearly aren't showing up. And it's like, okay, like we got 50 guys in catering. It's like, turn them into ninjas or something like what?
Go Ninja, go Ninja, go.
Which at this point would be a better form of entertainment. Just to get freaking with him to come there and perform that in the ring would be a better form of entertainment than putting back together the Riot Squad of suspended indefinitely suspended Nia Jax, who should probably be indefinitely suspended legitimately for the injury she's racked up on other people.
Yeah, I think, nothing you said is wrong. And part of what I want to be very clear about is that we keep presenting wrestling like it's 1986. And it's not. When Raw and Nitro became big, the only time you could see them besides Saturday night was on Monday. There was no YouTube, there was no social media, and you weren't guaranteed to see all the big stars on WCW Saturday Night or Sunday Night Heat. So those were kind of like I want to see a little bit more of my wrestling action. Now you have the WWE Network, you have Impact Plus, you have Honor Club, you got New Japan World. Plus, you have content that's free on YouTube, and you have 5 hours of Raw or of WWE. You have 2 hours of Impact. You got, whenever New Japan decides to run a show, because it feels like they don't always have they don't always run on Mondays or Tuesdays. They could be off for 2 weeks, or they could be on for 4 straight days. Who knows? But there's more than enough wrestling nowadays. 2 hours on AEW plus the 1 hour on Dark. There's too much content, and there's not enough time. So you have to realize that the outdated booking practices of 1985 need to die. That means having a week where you only do cruiserweights, and having a week where you only do heavyweights, and having a week where you only do tag team, and having a week where you only do the women. Or maybe you do 2 shows back to back, like kind of like what Bellator does. They have 2 shows usually every weekend, or at least they did before the pandemic. Like, that's the way you do things, but you need to vary it up to the point where you are guaranteed to see different things. I think one of the reasons why modern-day WB does not work with the brand split is because there's nothing different. With the original brand split, the reason why it was successful is you had the women on Raw. Granted, they weren't putting on great matches. And then you had the cruiserweights on SmackDown, which, granted, they weren't very big names, but they were at least, the women were at least beautiful, that they could hold your attention and were charismatic enough to be interesting. And the cruiserweights always put on damn good matches, even if it was Spike Dudley versus Tajiri, which I don't think anyone would pay to see in the main event, but they would put on a good match. Yeah. But now you have the 205 Live show, which no one watches. You got the NXT UK stuff that no one watches. You got NXT, which no one watches. And instead of trying to create like 1,000 different outlets for all of these shows, which by the way all just run on the same stupid, poorly underperforming network, WWE Network, and putting them onto the brand themselves to bolster the shows, they're diluting the shows even more so. And that's the problem. And that's why an idea like Raw Underground is a step in the right direction, at least because you are putting something unique on a show that is bland and can be seen 1,000 different times over on the WWE Network, not just in reruns or past episodes, but on SmackDown, NXT UK, NXT, and 205 Live, respectively. It's the same fucking show with different characters. This changes up the formula a bit, though.
It changes it until it has to become like everything else. It's like the brand split. Like the reason why, if something does start working again, it's that classic formula. Like more is more, not less. Mm-hmm. So it's going good. You know what'll really be great? And we do like a superstar extension or whatever the freak they called it. When 4 people could freaking superstar exchange or whatever. I'm like, the brand split really wasn't kicking when you did that. And that didn't help it because, again, everything keeps getting lost in translation. You set some rules, and then you don't follow them. And then you come up with another set of rules, and then you don't follow them. And then everything just blends, and it sucks all around. But I did want to ask you this. on top of what you said with
Mm-hmm.
the oversaturation of the content, another thing that helped a lot of that not seeing your champion or not seeing guys every week back then, there wasn't the social media age back then.
Mm-hmm.
The level of accessibility that fans just didn't have. And a lot of times today, unfortunately, specifically with WWE characters, a lot of these people end up being far more entertaining on social media than they are on the shows because they actually get to show personality and what have you and get a peek for them into their life. So by the time you get to these shows, it's like, it's kind of your job, but I like you better on YouTube.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like how much do you think? Because I think that's one of the true benefits to the longevity, and it's got stated over and over, and everybody think agrees to the longevity of Undertaker's career. He stuck to that gimmick so much that you just didn't know. So getting an interview with him was like appointment TV,
Yeah.
and he stuck to it until he retired.
I think the problem with that is not with the Undertaker. The Undertaker is the base formula for how you should present yourself. Not the dead wizard who shoots lightning. That idea won't ever fly again. We're too keen on that. More realism is needed in wrestling than ever before, not less. Unless it's done in a very hokey, tongue-in-cheek way, kind of like what Rosemary does. But as far as social media goes, I think, speaking of Rosemary, she's kind of the way to do it. She's had her own kind of digital brand for a while. She was doing the Demon and the Bunny skits with her and Allie when they were both filming together. So like they would actually do like I think it's like Masters of the Multiverse or something like that. Like was the name of the show, and it was like a tongue-in-cheek thing, and it wasn't too dissimilar from what the Hardy Boys used to do back in 04 and 05 with the Hardy Boys show. But I think the problem is too many people, they mix their real personality with their gimmicks online. And it really ends up hurting them in the long run because you start to really not care about one or the other. With Rosemary, she has a Rosemary account and a Courtney Rush account. And Rosemary's account only ever speaks about things that would cater to Rosemary, and she speaks in a cadence that Rosemary would speak in. She says we. Yep. She references the Hivelings, and it's everything. Like, you could ask her about her favorite type of melon baller, and she'll respond as Rosemary would. But then she has a Courtney Rush account, which has significant less followers, but that's her. Like, she's speaking of as Courtney from Canada, not a fictional television character. And I think that's where too many wrestlers fail to see, the forest for the trees, is that they think that they can just treat their social media account as a marketing tool, as not so much as an extension of their persona. And the problem with that is when you start to kind of incorporate the two, we start to not care about persona.
Yeah.
The best way to go about it is to not even have social media. But so many people make money off of Twitch and YouTube these days that if you're, not getting enough, like, especially like right now, if you're not getting enough bookings, you need to find a way to make income. But like what Ethan Page is doing, I would not advise that for other people. Just because Ethan Page's whole shtick is that he's entertaining, not so much that he's a specific character. But that doesn't work for everyone else. And in fact, when you think of guys from New Japan who still have this aura and mystique, it's because they don't make waves on social media. They may have one, but it's usually just routine. Oh, I'm facing, Okada at, in Taipei or wherever. I didn't want to go with a common Japanese city, but I completely forgot of all Japanese cities, so I went with a completely non-Japanese city because Taipei, I think, is in Thailand.
Yeah. We don't get Suzuki selfie Sundays.
Right, exactly. Like we don't have to worry about her. Although I'm about to use a comparison that arguably is a giant thirst trap. You don't need to worry about Hiroshi Tanahashi posting thirst trap photos, right? Like, we know who he is. He's walking thirst.
Which, to be fair, Hiroshi Tanahashi thirst trap is basically just a picture of his hair.
Right. It's just him sitting down in full clothing, just thirst trap. He's wearing a suit. His hair's even covered up, and he's got like a face mask on because it's cold. Thirst trap. So like he can't win, right? He can't win. But like when you think about that, it starts to become a problem. Like why I haven't even looked up Alexa Bliss on Twitter. I guarantee you she's still tweeting though, right? Let's just look. Alexa Bliss. Let's see what the blissful one is talking about on Twitter, because I guarantee you she's not selling the fact she got kidnapped.
And it's crazy because, like you said, that duality with Rosemary and Courtney is brilliant. But now, like with everybody in WWE, it's at their character, but the name is their real life name.
Yep. So Alexa Bliss hasn't tweeted anything since July 31st. So kudos to her. She's at least, selling it a bit.
You'd be like, check her Instagram, and it's
Wait, yep, nope. I'm about to.
you like check her Instagram, and she's in a hole with Bray having tea. Nothing exists. Nothing. The curtain's dead. The curtain's gone.
Does Alexa Bliss have an Instagram?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure everybody in the company does. Specifically, somebody who posts a lot of pictures, either sunbathing or pictures of their pig.
So,
Might be on the Lexi call.
Firstly, don't ever get a pig. Pigs will legitimately eat you. That's not hyperbole. Pigs are not dogs. Just don't buy a fucking pig, man. Like, for Christ on a cracker. It's like buying an alligator. Like, what are you doing? If you're asleep for too long, that pig will eat your ass. Literally. It's bacon. Stop. But secondly, so Alexa Bliss, nothing new in 4 days. Kudos to her. Too many people aren't like that, though. And so I think part of the problem is, people need to use social media smarter. But I also think we're getting to a point where social media is dying. I'm seeing less people tweeting every week about things than I have before. I think people are, I'm seeing less activity on Facebook. I'm seeing less activity across, maybe not YouTube, but like those individual ideas of so like too many people are talking about the toxicity to the point where I think in 10 years we're going to be like, remember when everyone thought it was a good idea to have a social media platform? Ugh. I think we're going to eventually see that happen because so many people are leaving both Twitter and Facebook and Instagram at pretty high rates. Not significant. I'm not sitting here saying that they lost 80% of their user base, but I wouldn't be surprised if year to year they've declined, even if only a percentage, because people are getting fed up with the pain that comes with being part of social media.
Yeah, it's like Facebook, and like a lot of people don't watch the news anymore because they're tired of, starting everything out with a murder or stuff like that in social media.
Or getting baited into some hate debate about the other side. It's a constant. The way people used to get tricked into watching or subscribing to something have been exposed. Maybe not to such a large degree, but to a large enough one that it is affecting viewer habits.
Yeah, it is. And like I said, a lot of people have clearly seen that they either need to 100% remove themselves from it or take extended breaks. Mm-hmm. But I do think, like you said, it's kind of trending into that territory where it probably gonna be a lot of people that be like, you can only probably see me or talk to me through a Twitch stream, or you got people who be on these websites where you have to pay for an account where you can chat back and forth with them and such, because at least then, there's an incentive with that.
And you can also really properly utilize the functions of like an OnlyFans account to get rid of people who may be a problem for you, as opposed to Twitter where guys can just sign up over and over and over again. Yeah,
exactly. So, in between, just a lot of stuff you can't help but see on Twitter now, specifically when they basically like a BS Facebook and kind of stole their features. Like it used to be when Twitter I first got on Twitter, you could see what somebody retweeted, but you couldn't see what they liked. Mm-hmm. So if somebody sent something that wasn't necessarily on point for your brand, but like somebody sent you like a awkward or sensual pic, you wouldn't retweet it, but you like it. Right. And they was the only person that can see it. Now people can see your likes, your retweets. I'm like, what was the point of this?
That's why I don't like anything. I just if I like it, I retweet. If I don't like it, I'm not gonna do shit. So, I think in the grand scheme of things, this Raw Underground segment took way too long to get through, and I still have one more thing to say about it. I think going back to a period in time where you had specific reasons to watch a show needs to happen. I think the best way for Raw to survive and thrive is to, one, bring all the women's titles to Raw. Part of the reason is you got 3 hours to kill, and you have 2 dudes who are worth tuning in for. And those 2 dudes may not even, be on Raw come next week just because of the way Vince McMahon reacts to things. So have an entire hour dedicated to the women. And you can call it the, Rawmen. I don't know. That's a terrible name. Or the Weimara, or it's even worse. Like, it works really well with Impact if you just had like an entire hour called the Knockouts Hour. Like, that works. But the Raw fucked themselves. WWE fucked themselves trying to be all like, we're going to call ourselves the women's division. Yeah, I like it. Completely, it's asexual with the brand identity, however. There's nothing about it that goes, yeah, that pops. Knockouts? Yeah. Women?
Which again, and whoever's saying like to that guy who was harking on the name, like
he got buried.
Loved it. But you know how much more credibility like the company holds for sticking with the knockouts thing and the women endorsing it, which Gail Kim was 100% right. I'm pretty sure they've had discussions multiple times in depth. I'm pretty sure that people have come into the company, those different regimes, about changing the name. It's like so much equity has been built up in this by some of the best women to ever grace this business. So when you get over to WWE, it's like, my God, they're finally changing to the women's division, the right thing to do. Like, they always do stuff not at the right time, but when it's the time in which is convenient for them to do it, most convenient for them to do it. When everything back in the 90s, when everything was tits and ass, that's all they pumped it out, tits and ass. You had freaking Triple H, freaking got a woman to pull a top up in the audience. Today, that's freaking, you can be stoned to death for that.
Yep.
But now, like, it's conducive to be on the right side of these, social and political issues. And it's all about the PR narrative for them. So, of course, they're going to rock with it now, and everybody's going to get on board because it's like they're always ahead of the curve. No, they're chasing the curve.
The curve has passed them by. So I would put the women on Raw, give them an entire hour to themselves. Have Medusa or Beth Phoenix or whoever do commentary with Renee Young, although I don't think Renee's very good at play-by-play, but I don't have anyone else you can do play-by-play with. At the moment, maybe just do Michael Cole. He's pretty much a bitch at this point, so why not? I don't know. I would put the women on Raw. I would put Raw Underground, and then I would just do like an hour of regular Raw, and like that's what I would present as Monday night offering, and then Tuesday I would bring over the Cruiserweight title to SmackDown, and have 2 weighted divisions. I would merge the U.S. title and the IC title. They're both terrible looking belts anyway at this point, so who the fuck cares? And I would present my 2 single wrestlers, champions, in the men's side of things, as like the big boys. And I would give someone like Finn Balor the Cruiserweight title, mostly because I think, one, Finn Balor is just being wasted in NXT. Someone that popular should not be just buried on a digital show for no reason. And I would give him the Cruiserweight title and present it as a equal to the heavyweight title, just at a different weight. That's the way you can offer uniqueness and a differing kind of ideology. And beyond that, I would change the SmackDown tag titles to a trios title. So that way, they have a trios division. And then Raw can have a tag team division. It's those little differences that make these shows unique and stand out. But again, Vince McMahon is booking like it's 1985, and he doesn't know how. He wasn't very good at booking in 1985 in the first place. That's why he had to keep throwing money at people. But, I digress. Marcus, anything else? Because we need to move on.
No, we're good.
Just drop the fucking jeans on Raw Underground and maybe get some guys who can actually fight. And it might be worth watching. Who knows? Speaking of worth watching, New Japan announced that they're going to be doing a U.S. tournament that will feature the winners getting a shot at the U.S. title. The lineup is actually kind of interesting because you have David Finlay versus Chase Owens, Brody King versus Tama Tonga, Tonga Loa versus Jeff Cobb, and then Carl Fredericks versus Kenta. I didn't realize Kenta was still living in the U.S. That explains why we haven't seen much of Kenta. So that's the foursome, 8-some, I should say, and they're going to be the ones facing off for the belts. not the belt, the number one contendership. And if I remember correctly, it's going to be taking place in the U.S. at the same facility I would imagine that they just shot those lion break shows that they did. I like the lineup. It's fucking Tama Tonga, Carl. All the guys I like are in one fucking bracket though, except for Tama Tonga. You got Jeff Cobb, Kenta, and Carl Fredericks on the left, and then Tama Tonga on the right. I don't really care about Brody King and Chase Owens, and David Finley's all right, but I'm definitely rooting for a Kenta, Tama Tonga, not Kenta, Tama Tonga, Jeff Cobb, or Tama Tonga, Carl Fredericks finale. That's just my hope.
Yeah.
What about you, Marcus? Thoughts on this idea?
Yeah, me and Chad have a Tama bias, but I mean, if you've ever seen Tama, you would understand. The guy's just he's the guy. But I dig it. I like it, and you know, guys like Dave Finley and who was the other guy? Dave Finley,
Chase Owens, Brody King, and Tama Tonga.
Yeah, guys like Dave Finley and Chase Owens. These are always guys who are really good, but don't always get a chance to show it because I mean they're on the same roster as guys, in these bigger factions and what have you, and they don't always, get to have a lot of those big moments. But it's in places like this where they can shine. Like I think what it was, the Japan Cup, where a lot of the smaller guys were able to shine, like Takahashi and Bushi, and guys that really thrive who kind of get pushed in the background. I mean, it's hard to when you are good, but when you're in Lij, I mean, you kind of got to be, you almost have to be stand out like Hiromu from a personality perspective to kind of yank that spotlight away from Naito or even freaking Shingo. So I like all the names in this tournament. It's gonna be good to see Kenta again. Like you said, I didn't know he was staying in the U.S., so that makes perfect sense. And it's funny because I was gonna be like, "Where's our boy Juice?" But obviously he's in Japan. So
and he just got hurt.
Oh wow.
Yeah, he hurt his leg.
Oh man.
Let me
Well,
check that out.
how long ago was this? Because I'm surprised he wasn't in the cup. Was this before the cup?
Days ago.
Okay. All right. Well, wishes to him, but hopefully we get to see more of him. Hopefully for the years out. But yeah, I'm digging that tournament, man, and I'm pulling for Tama. But it'll be interesting seeing. I think Tama and Kenta could tear it up.
It says Tama and Kenta would be amazing. Plus, they're both Bullet Club. New Japan announced that the former U.S. champion suffered a right leg injury and will be unavailable to compete on the New Japan Strong shows on August 7th. I do believe the New Japan Strong shows are the U.S. shows. Let's see. Which will hold the first round of the New Japan Cup USA. Yep, there it is. The Japanese promotion doesn't give a timetable for when Juice could make his in-ring return. So I guess this happened outside of quote-unquote competition? Because it doesn't seem like he got hurt wrestling. Let's check Cage Match real fast. Someone gave Juice Robinson a 2. You're fucking stupid. You cannot like the guy, but to give him a 2 out of 10, are you? How high are you?
On what ranking system and for what? Like, what do you judge him on? His attire?
Well, even that's not a 2. Yeah, he hasn't wrestled since February, so this injury came when he must have been working out at home. Because I saw that he had gotten hurt, and I assumed it was in a match in Japan, but, I guess not.
Oh, that sucks.
Yeah, but, all right, so the 2 actually came in April of this year by a guy named Hydroblade New Japan. It's out of 10. Juice Robinson is just the same thing over and over. How long is New Japan going to keep booking him as an underdog? The horrible team of Finn Juice does the tag team division 0 favors, and he's just obnoxious. 2 points for at least having a connection to the crowd, but I hate watching Juice. But here's the saving grace. Of all the latest ratings, 8, 9, 9, 9, 10, 8, 9, 9, 7, 10, 8, 9, 8, 10, 9, 7, 10. So he's in the extreme minority, and I'm still going through, and I'm not seeing anything lower than I saw a 6. from 2017. So like, dude's clearly wrong.
Yeah, it's funny. There are just some certain guys, like I was watching this review for this DBZ movie, and it was like the reason why, like, the best way to watch Goku is when he's coming back off the back foot, and the most fun way to watch Vegeta is when he's being the aggressor, even though we don't see that a lot. But it's like Juice, you almost feel awkward if he's, trying to be Lance Archer one week. Like, what? So.
Yeah, I don't disagree. So I'm hoping for a Jeff Cobb or a Carl Fredericks versus Tama Tonga finale. I think Carl Fredericks. I like Carl Fredericks. I don't want him to win yet. So I think him getting the match with Tama would be the nice rub, even if Tama does go over, which is what I would hope. But with Cobb, it's like, do I want Jeff Cobb or do I want Tama Tonga? I don't know. I'm conflicted. They're both island boys.
Man.
So you know that their heads are going to be colliding numerous times.
I'm rocking with Tonga. Gun stun everybody straight to hell. Again. And that's the great thing about it. It's that sudden impact. You can catch him out of nowhere. Although if he tried it on Cobb, he could catch him mid-air and just throw him out the ring.
Yep.
So
can Tama just start calling himself Bullet Club Sting?
I mean, basically.
Right? Like, that would be awesome. I would appreciate that.
Also, one of the guys in the funeral business who had one of the sickest face paints and mask.
Mm-hmm. I love his face paint. His mask's pretty cool, but his brother has a very similar mask, and I feel like that takes away some of the uniqueness.
Yeah.
Almost dropped you. Don't want to drop you. So let's talk a little Ring of Honor, because they've been radio silent since about March. It does look like Mike and Maria will more than likely sign with Ring of Honor. Just they're all over advertising stuff, in terms of like, they got a Ring of Honor podcast that's, being, dished out by Kevin Eck. And they were one of the guests on it. So like, why would you have Mike and Maria on a Ring of Honor podcast unless you were going to sign Mike and Maria to a Ring of Honor contract? Like, why wouldn't Mike and Maria debut at Slammiversary or the night after if they had signed with him? Like, there's too much there, too much kind of smoke not to be a fire. And so I think Mike's and Maria are heading back to Ring of Honor. Now, while that might not be great for, say, Impact or even specifically Mike, because Impact has really taken that third spot in the American wrestling zeitgeist, in my opinion. They're doing far better than Ring of Honor, MLW, NWA. But for Mike, I feel like even though he's going to the number 4 brand, I feel like that's the best move because it's going to give him an instantaneous headlining opportunity. With Jay Lethal and Marty Scurll both being kind of vilified at this point, and to the point where even if Ring of Honor doesn't suspend or I shouldn't even say suspend, even if Ring of Honor doesn't fire them outright, I feel like they're too tainted in the eyes of the community to be guys that people will show up for anymore. So you're almost forced to move on. Alex Shelley was someone who was headlining alongside those two cats, but now Shelley's in Impact, reformed with Chris Sabin having a pretty damn good run as tag team champion so far. So there's a lot of, and PCO didn't really do anything, and it looks like Brody King's done in Ring of Honor, or at least might have to change things up at the moment. So there is some stuff, in terms of fluidity at the top of the card that has now changed. Mike Bennett can come in day one, win the Ring of Honor World title, and be seen as the guy of a brand on his own, and it would not be something too obscure or shocking. Well, it'll be shocking, but not in a bad way. Bennett could really just rejuvenate his entire career with Maria in Ring of Honor as the world champion, because who else do they have at this point? I was about to call you Mike. Marcus, when you think about that, when you think about the idea that the top end of Ring of Honor is so open at the moment, do you think Mike Bennett would do well to go to Ring of Honor?
I'm right there with you. And I'm not really sad about him not being with Impact because I think we got a lot. We got enough balls in the air being thrown consistently right now where we might not necessarily need him.
Mm-hmm.
The fact that Russell House is working out as well as it has is just,
so good.
You know, right. Anybody that don't like it, that's on you. But I'm enjoying the hell out of it. I mean, the fact that the whole concept is based on whether or not freaking Johnny Bravo, me and Rosemary, she would be in like the third trimester right now. But anyway, but that's just me and Chad. We don't like to waste a whole lot of time. But
Once we get consent, we
I
go
mean,
for the goal.
we go for the and a dog. But yeah, I mean, like you said, the top spot's wide open. I mean, I like guys like Silas Young, but it's unless you constantly tweak that version of I'm the real man and going after young boys, that kind of gets old after a while. We know the Briscoes are lifers, and we kind of know what they really own, despite what they may have to apologize for.
They should be
Um,
lifers, but in a completely different way.
boom, perfect. Like you said, Lethal is in a very precarious position. Um, what happened to guys? Like what was his name? The guy with the long hair who was
Taven?
champion. Not no, not Tate. I'm gonna get to him in a second, which is gonna add in this
Roosh?
thing. But Roosh, yeah.
I think he's still champion. He lost the belt, but then he won it back from PCO.
Okay, that's an interesting thing. But yeah, but that spot's like you said, wide open, and because they bungle the whole thing with the women, Maria will really be a breath of fresh air.
Yeah.
Um, and you bring and I think the reason why it works for Mike, like I said, he left and Taven took off,
Mm-hmm.
revitalized the kingdom and took off. You could bring him back in and then just have this built up animosity from somebody like Taven, who even though clearly has had more success, is like, dude, you're not finna just come back in here and slide in your old spot and then just have me be your second. Like, I'm the guy. You get behind me. I'm the one who put the kingdom on my back, took it all the way to the championship somewhere, a championship that you never even so much as sniffed when you were here. And that could be his first feud back. That'll be something great. And then you could have him ascend to that upper echelon until you get to somebody like Roosh. I mean, it's kind of ready made. To me, you go where you got the most history to build off on. And an Impact, what was the last thing he did? I can't even remember.
He was drunk at Allie's broken wedding or Laurel's broken wedding to Braxton Sutter.
Yeah, go to Ring of Honor. Yeah. you was you was the hype bachelor man at the party for the Blade or whatever his name.
The Butcher, the Blade,
Yeah,
the Butcher, the Blade, can't say that word.
what the hell happened to your bunny? What happened to your bunny?
Well, Excalibur went full Michael Richards, so you know.
And it's funny too because I was just thinking about that. Like Allie she almost can't come back to Impact just because of like how good of an arc she had. Like you can't just bring that character back and be like, oh, you kind of remind me of the bunny. Like no, like we got to. It's not too many storylines that we've seen in the last few years that have literally come full circle like that. So if she came back, it'll be hella awkward specifically because a lot of Rosemary's storyline is encompassing of everything she's done since we've seen her debut.
Mm-hmm.
And it kind of peeks in back and forth, whether it be her time with her interactions with Crazy Steve Molly in the house, with the decay stuff, that great thing they did in the first day of the house with freaking that CGI shot of a bitch.
That was great.
And all that stuff. And by the way, Tommy Dreamer is like the man right now because he's just like he's the hype man. He's also the guy that pokes in. And then what was the thing? Somebody said, we need to do such and such. No way, Jose. We didn't sign him.
Yeah.
Oh, good.
Wrestle House is fantastic. I think the idea of doing a Mike versus Matt kind of Kingdom showdown would be perfect. The only thing, because I think they were tag team champions too, because it was Mike Bennett, Matt Taven, and Adam Cole. Who was the Kingdom? It was Taven and Bennett.
Was it TK Orion before they got the other guy?
Well, TK Orion and Vinny Marcellia were the new Kingdom. But when they were shooting with the Bullet Club, when they were doing Ring of Honor and New Japan stuff, the Kingdom I think was Adam Cole. Mike Bennett.
Founded it, yeah.
Yeah, Mike.
There
There's
you
Adam
go. Yeah,
Cole,
you're right.
Mike Bennett, and Matt Taven.
Yeah.
And then Hardy was a mentor to, I think it was Cole, and then Maria, and it was the valet. And then they brought in Vinny Marcellia, TK O'Ryan, and Matt Taven. So I would do that. I would bring in Bennett, maybe even align him with Vinny Marcellia, just so you can have more of that Kingdom backstory. But I would give him some kind of moniker that I'm going to give some bad ones, but the idea is going to be clear. Like call, if Matt Taven's, the head of the Kingdom, do Mike Bennett like as the Duke or the Earl or the Crown Prince or something like that, or even go like religious, where you can go with like the Antichrist of the Kingdom, or the High Father of the Kingdom, just something like that. Just so you can have kind of like a dynamic versus dynamic that would eventually build off to Bennett going over, because Bennett, I think, is 10 times the wrestler and 5 times as charismatic as Taven. And I think, him as the world champion is the way to go.
Yeah, and if he isn't more charismatic, his wife is.
So we know that to be true.
So yeah, like I said, I think that's a ready-made feud, and yeah, I mean it'll be so easy to get off into, because he can make fun of so much of his WWE run, and like even some stuff. I mean, he could even bring up the fact that, like, look, man, like me and Adam literally went and got everything we ever wanted, and you went and became your wife's husband.
Oh, jeez. That wouldn't be bad. That wouldn't be bad at all. So let's move on to the final topic. Emergence, the new Impact Wrestling special. I saw this and I thought it was like a Space TV or Discovery TV fucking special.
Hosted by who, Chad?
What did I say? Neil deGrasse Chandler or like or Ethan deGrasse Tyson? Like, could you just imagine him showing up in a suit with like a Jerry Carroll wig on and like glasses, going, "Hi, I'm Ethan deGrasse Tyson. How are you?"
Oh, freak! Just get Swinger to host it.
Just have like Josh Alexander roll up like fucking Stephen Hawking in a wheelchair. I like the concept. To emerge is to kind of explode outward. It's to present yourself. So clearly, this is an idea kind of like with they had Hard to Kill, which was Impact is naming their shows after their history. Hard to Kill is because they've yet to die. The show where Pentagon won, Redemption. They were trying to redeem the brand after years of being mismanaged. Emergence is now it's kind of like a trilogy of sorts. You had Redemption, Hard to Kill, and Emergence. And this is going to be their two-parter of showing us, like, this is who we are, this is what we can present to you, tune in. And the numbers are up for Impact, especially digitally speaking. They had, and I know this is going to sound like gangbuster numbers, so like, expectations are tempered, but they had 5,000, 6,000 people watching the Impact-specific stream tonight. And they usually have, several different channels broadcasting it. So like you have like Jessica Havoc and Ethan Page's, but this is 4.5 times their average before Slammiversary. So like they brought fans back, and this is the second week in a row that numbers went up. Because last week it was like 4,000, and now we're looking at 5,000. So,
I mean, somebody who doesn't necessarily have certain avenues, the Twitch thing is almost a godsend, and it doesn't hurt that you see Melissa Santos in between commercials. But I thought it sucks watching her try to go through the like that, but you're like, oh my god, like okay, such and such said, baby Cage deserves better parents. Oh, I was like, God damn it. Oh, that's a suck you get. But yeah, man. I mean, like you said, I think that kind of gets lost in translation too. Like them naming those shows after basically the company's mindset.
Mm-hmm.
Hard to Kill, Redemption, and now Emergence. Into me just going deep into the vault. Like that fourth one got to be finally cash flow positive.
In the black. And it's just Ron Killings, like, why am I here?
Like pay-per-view, like weekly, our pay-per-view exclusively promoted and sponsored by Dixie Carter. Finally cash flow positive. But
I finally turned a profit. That's the new theme song for her. I finally, cause she's like still like 10% owner. She could come out to I finally turned a profit.
Oh man, that would be great. Yeah, but that emergence, I dig it, man. Like a 2-week thing. I mean, we kind of been getting. I mean, obviously, the New Japan did a double thing. WWE did double Mania, but this I think is really good. And obviously, I think what we got so far, we got the knockout title match, and I think obviously they're gonna do the tag at Emergence. So it's already shaping up to be some good stuff. And the fact that it got the like you said, the space element to it it works. I'm excited to see what they're gonna do with it.
Here's what I would like to see from Impact, especially right now. They don't have, because like one of the reasons why I subscribe to Impact Plus isn't just for the old content, which I do intend on getting into, especially as the summer winds down and we go back to watching television shows that I no longer have an interest in. I'm going to have to find something to watch, and seeing Peak Angle doing his shit like he used to, definitely on my to-do list. But one of the other reasons is because they were doing specialty events for the service. So one of the things that I'm sure they're going to want to do eventually is get more subscribers, obviously. And the only way to go about that is giving people a reason to tune in. What I would like to see is, instead of doing 2-week events or a week event, because like usually these are like 2-week events. This is a single night event, I think, but it could be a 2-night event. I don't know. But they've done 2-night events before that were on television. Instead of doing that, just do part 1 on Tuesday, and then stream the second part Wednesday, or put it on Friday, whenever. But that's something I would do, and part 1 would have the knockouts match and the tag title match, and then just for the shits and giggles, like the conclusion of Wrestle House and Falaba versus Rohit Raju, just trying to round out the card. And then on the Friday show, you would have the X Division title match, the heavyweight title match. You would have Rosemary finally consummates the relationship with Johnny Bravo, and something involving Rob Van Dam and Sami Callihan. So you get the taste on Twitch or on Access TV, or however you're viewing it, and then you would sign up for the stream on Wednesday or Friday or whenever to watch the second part. I think that's a good way to get people to come to Impact Plus. That's just an idea.
Yeah, but how good does that first part have to be?
It has to be pretty fucking good. That's why you put the knockouts and the tag titles on there, because you guarantee at least one of them is going to be banger, right? Especially when you got the North and the machine guns. So it's an idea that I think has legs if you book it properly. Because I remember watching, I don't know if you were into wrestling when this was a thing, but they used to do WCW pay-per-views on Saturdays and WWE pay-per-views on Sundays, partly because they wanted to do the Saturday night WCW show be a lead into the pay-per-view, and then they wanted to do Sunday Night Heat be a lead into the pay-per-view. And they would try to present these shows as the free appetizer, but you would get 3-minute matches with Al Snow versus Bob Holly, or Wrath versus Bryan Adams. No one's buying the fucking pay-per-view watching a 2-minute squash match with Wrath versus Ernest Miller, right? No, you didn't do it. But if you do it this way, where you give half of the event for free, but still leave enough on the bone to make you want to come back for more, I think you can. You're not going to be pulling in 1 million people every week, but you can probably get a few hundred. And that's still better than what you're doing now, because you don't have the digital exclusives to hook people. Because that's, Bash at the Brewery, they had that night where they brought in the Great Muda to do a 6-man. You don't have those events right now. So you have to do something to utilize Impact Plus in a different manner, and I think that's the way to go about it. But, again, that's just an opinion. I can't imagine it would be that much more money to film, 3 or 4 extra matches whenever you do these COVID tapings. Because it's not exactly like you're gonna have to worry about spoilers. You can fucking record 8 weeks out and not worry about anything. So, it's a different time right now with the COVIDness. Would you be interested in an idea like that, considering you'd be getting still something of significant value on the Impact episode, but then the next day or Friday or what have you, you would then go and get the other stuff.
It'll just be I just wanted to like you said, that first show has to be banging. Also, the lead up to it has to be cracking. But I think if there was a time to perhaps experiment and put faith in the level of trust that you garnered from not only the fan base like us that stuck around, but the curiosity of the fan base that you brought back, and the new people, it'll probably be now.
Mm-hmm.
Because I mean, you got risk reward type of deal, but again, they got the roster, they got the booking, they had a mindset to do it. I mean, this has been some of the most consistent continuity we've gotten with these characters and these storylines in a really long time. And now, people are obviously motivated. You got some new blood in there. I mean, Heath looked good tonight.
Yeah.
So, then you got freaking EC3 clearly back with an agenda, and just stuff of that nature. So, like, if it was time to do something, it'll be now.
I tend to agree. Okay, we've been in your ear too long tonight. This is going on 90 minutes. I feel like we've put in our work. Marcus, you and I are going to be back together, reunited, and it feels so good in 2 days on twitch.tv/Comic and GameCorp every Thursday at 9-ish, give or take. This week we're talking Doom Patrol, the penultimate episode of Stargirl's first season, I believe. It's the second to last episode, yes, of the season this week?
Yeah.
Okay. So the penultimate season finale episode, it's going to be this week. Then we're also going to be talking about the next few chapters of Why the Last Man. And then in 2 weeks or so, we're going to be taking some time off from ComicCorp and recontextualizing and coming back in a very big way with our series review of something that I don't know what yet. Could be a comic book, could be a movie series, could be a TV show, could be a season, could be a series. I don't know. But I'm excited. Tomorrow, though, every Wednesday, Zach and I are going to be on twitch.tv/WrestlingUnderground to talk Impact Wrestling, Making an Impact specifically. We will be talking about the Wrestle House, Eddie Edwards versus Sami Callihan, which, holy hell, what a match. The Rich Swann stuff, which, I mean, telegraphed. Every time these things happen, they're always telegraphed. You're never going to sell me ever again on another one after Edge's in-ring retirement. I don't believe it. There's a formula, and I know when it's going to be executed. You all don't know how to work anymore. That's all I'm going to say.
But kudos to Swan for selling the hell out of it.
That was awesome. Like, Swan's promo, I thought, was a little kind of... Because he was like, I went to go see my doctor! And I'm like, what are you, some kind of death metal singer? Like, what are you doing? Stay at one octave. Who produced this segment? And then I had to go to rehab. And I thought it was really hard. Like, what are you doing, Rich? Like, where's... But then when he got hit and then he starts screaming, I was like, Swanee, that's pretty good.
Just like that. Just like the first time. And I don't know what he tapped into, but it really felt like a few times, like, wait a minute, did he really hurt something and we just didn't get told nothing? Like, they all really, really saw that. Like, I thought, like, a chick came out to the ring, and I don't know if that was the backstage. I'm like, wow, Susie really,
she cleaned up.
Yeah, cleaned up, really nice. Like,
yeah, that was the backstage interviewer chick.
Yeah, nice, but they really put on and freaking. I like that. There's levels now. There's a-hole, absolute scumbag, and EY.
I will say this, like, in terms of like a character, I'm not a big EY guy, unless he's doing dumb shit, but like, I'm all right with what they're doing with him right now. They're attacking a very likable dude in Rich Swann. Although don't ask Powerbomb Jitsu, they seem to hate him, which is baffling to me because they always seem like they'd be like front lines for any black wrestler, and they're like, no, we don't fuck with Rich. I'm like, oh, all right. But you know, they attacked a dude who's very popular, very likable, and you know, what I loved is after Eric came out and you know just drilled into him, half of the people sprinted after Young, which you never see. Like one of the rascals went dashing after him. Like even one of the women went dashing after Young. So I was like really impressed with the segment as a whole.
Yeah, because you so used to, hey, oh, God, I jumped him in the ring, and he left the ring. Now I'm going to stand here and tell him to get his ass back in there as he backtracks.
Right, or like you had the one person like throwing with the axe, and they're all just like, what do we do? Oh, my God. You have John Cena in the corner going, they shot a 12-year-old. What do we do? And the gunman's like standing over the 12-year-old going, ha, 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 ha. It's like, what? But like, no, like they're like, we're going to fucking kill you. Well, why would you do that? So like I like that. That was a nice way to close the show.
For some reason, that just instantly took me back to that kid that got ran over during the LA.
What was his name? Javier or something? Manuel?
That damn kid's still out there, man.
He's just laying in the street waiting for someone to come get him.
Oh, God, man.
Kingston saying to AEW, like, I ran over a 12-year-old Cody. You got to sign me or I'm going to run your ass over. And Cody's like, I don't want to be ran over. You're signed. Remember when AEW signed like 20 people who we never heard of and they were going to fill out the roster and now we've never seen them since?
So, like 4 from the first press conference, right?
Right? Like one of the dudes is like, yeah. Like he faced off like with Kenny Omega and had a 20-minute match and we haven't seen him since.
So basically it's the Bucks, it's well the Pentagon of Phoenix is still there in some capacity. The Bucks, them, the Doctor chick. And I can't really think about it besides Jericho, Britt Baker, and besides Jericho, that's about it.
So let's see. I just real quickly, I wanna laugh at this. Let's see. I think it was Fight for the Fallen where they had like a 20-minute match with someone. Let's see. Nope, not that one. Let's go with Fyter Fest.
Surprised they didn't Cross.
What's that?
I'm surprised they didn't bring in Matt Cross, but I was thinking like he was with NWA.
I feel like it was Fight for the Fallen. Brandy Rhodes used to wrestle. Yeah, here we go. Adam Page faced off with Kip Sabian. Where the fuck Kip Sabian's been? Oh, God. He's wrestled twice in June and July.
Oh, yeah, because isn't he like Ford's guy, Penelope?
Is he? He's wrestled once in 4. He's wrestled twice in 8 weeks. He's not much of anyone's guy. Oh, God. Like, they had Kip Sabian versus Sammy Guevara at one point. Like, where's Sunny Days at? Mark Quinn? Oh, no, he's one of the...
well, you know...
The private party guys, isn't he?
Well, Coda just showed his appreciation for the community by giving him that TNT title match.
Yep. Yes, he did. No, that you're thinking of Sunny Kiss. I said Sunny Days. I don't even know who Sunny Days is.
Me neither. I thought that was. I thought you would get the name.
How dare you confuse two? Potentially, I don't know if Sunny Days is black, but how dare you confuse two black people, Marcus? You racist.
Oh, God.
White people, black people. Marcus hates everyone.
Out there, roster win a pandemic long before February.
Like Jack Evans and Angelico haven't been used in forever. Best Friends haven't been. Well, they did get a title shot, but like that was like the first time in like months I've seen them on TV. So like, oh man. Anyway, realnerdcorp.com, RealNerdCorp.com. I promise you, if you come to our website, we will not Excalibur you. We will never use racial slurs to try to get a reaction out of you. Promise. If we do it, it's because we're bigots. We're going to go authentic with it.
Yeah, or we'll try to flirt with you in a really old mask.
Well, I'm going to try to flirt with you regardless. Whether I'm wearing a mask or not isn't going to be relevant to the situation. You can also find us on Twitter at NerdCorp and on the Instagram. Eventually, when I get a new phone and my Instagram app doesn't decide to take a crap on me every day. At Real NerdCorp. Marcus, you can be found on Twitter at ParadoxKid, ParadoxKid.
That's me.
You can also find him on his other podcast, The True Penny Show, at True Penny Show on Twitter, TruePennyShow. I'm going to be found on Twitter at Chad NerdCorp, ChadNerdCorp, and on Instagram at Chad's Photo Hut. If you like the show and you want to follow the show and you want to tune into the shows, YouTube.com, Twitch.tv, Podbean, iTunes, Mix something. We're on a lot of places. Links to all of them will be on either at YouTube or on the website page themselves, realnerdcorp.com. It's easy to find us. It's easy to subscribe to us. We tell you where to go. It's pretty simple. So Marks and I will be back on Thursday. We'll see you tomorrow. Me and Zach will for Making an Impact right here. We'll talk more then about stuff. But for Mark Streen, I'm Chad Portal. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for checking us out. Thanks for giving us a chance. And as always, watch more wrestling. And Marcus, tell the people. Wait, hang on. Tell the people. Good night from the underground in the way only you can be. Just say good night, Marcus.
Good night, me.